on that. Let's go ahead. I guess tell us a little bit about yourself, Katie. You're purple belt out in Seattle. Who are you training under?
I train under James Foster. He's a 4th degree black belt under Jiva Santana at Foster Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and the One Jiu-Jitsu Association.
Okay, nice. And how's that been going? I guess what made you transition? Weren't you in Texas before?
Yeah.
Okay.
My now husband got a new job up here, so we moved up here, and it was really tough leaving like the only jiu-jitsu family I'd known, and then when I joined up here, it's actually been a really great transition. Now, I mean, I say transition, it's been over 2 years now, but I absolutely love the people I train with, and I mean, Coach Foster has done amazing things for my game, both mentally and physically.
Nice, beautiful. He seems like a very, I met him once at a seminar, and it was like intimidating because he's like a big guy, but he's like a gentle bear. So he's a humble.
I was scared of him in the beginning, and his size. I almost didn't want to join his gym because of how big he was. I was like, I don't know how much a 300-pound guy can teach a 115-pound girl, but I'm really glad I ended up joining. He's a great role model, both for me and my daughter.
Gotcha. So what made you, I guess, how'd you start jiu-jitsu? When did you start? And tell us a little bit about your, I guess, some of the things that pops in your head as far as any like memorable jiu-jitsu moments or teaching lessons throughout your journey of jiu-jitsu.
I started actually by chance. I had no idea what jiu-jitsu was. I had gotten a Groupon for a month-long kickboxing class, and I went in for the class, and I hated every moment of it. I had just watched like my first UFC fight, and I was like, oh, I want to do that. Like, I want to learn how to kick someone's butt. And I went in, it was totally cardio-based. Like, we didn't get a spar at all, which obviously is actually a good, now looking back, I'm like, duh, they're not going to let you spar your first day. But I really hated it. And then I ended up staying after, and I watched the jiu-jitsu class. And I was like, no, that's actually what I want to do. So the next day I ended up trying a jiu-jitsu class and never went back to kickboxing. I just started going every day. And that was about 5.5 years ago. And here I am now.
Nice.
I think for like memorable moments or like things that really stick out, I've won some big moments with Fight to Win, Noogie fans, like some big, but those aren't really what stick out. What stick out are the moments in the fight camps that I like had to work through and overcome things, or I think some of them are the mental battles that I've overcome versus actually winning things. So like last year at Las Vegas Open, I ended up having food poisoning before I competed. And I really wanted to quit, but I wanted to try. And I ended up only getting bronze in gi and silver in no-gi, but I was throwing up in between matches. But it was a huge mental victory for me to be able to be like, okay, I feel completely like crap, but I can still get out there and at least try to do my best.
Nice. So how has your mindset changed since you started, maybe till now? Because I know my mindset changed. I've had some mental issues as when I was a young kid, and then it didn't like really develop throughout my jiu-jitsu journey. So how has that changed and shifted over the years for you?
It's been amazing kind of looking back and seeing who I used to be and almost not recognizing her. I've pretty much depression. And I actually attempted suicide when I was 16 years old. So I've really dealt with it all my life. And jiu-jitsu isn't a cure-all, and it doesn't fix it, but it definitely helped give me tools to kind of think about myself less as a victim, and the mental training that I've done with Coach Foster has really helped kind of push through a lot of those moments that when life is really tough, and teach me how to like basically teach me the strength that I have inside me.
Gotcha. So going back, talking about you're on the verge of committing suicide. Tell us a little bit about that. I mean, your childhood, your upbringing, just what you were like as a child, and then your parents, and what made you want to, be on the verge of committing suicide.
So looking back, I had a really good childhood. Both my parents were and are amazing. They've been always really supportive. I don't have any childhood trauma in that case. I was a very athletic overachiever. I was in student council, science Olympiad, 2 to 3 sports. I kind of did a little bit of everything. But when my brother passed away when I was younger, and that it had a huge impact on my life then and now. And I came to the realization that I didn't want to live in a world that he wasn't in. And so I made the decision to attempt suicide. And I actually did attempt suicide. I ended up in a psychiatric ward for juveniles for about 3 weeks. That helped give me more tools, helped get me on the right meds, and give me the tools to deal with my grief and deal with all the, the bullying and all that stuff that happens in high school.
Gotcha. So that was definitely a dark place you've been in, and you're able to slowly get out of that. So tell us, so you had to go, you had to take medication. So what else what steps were you taking? What was that process? I guess how did the process go for you to get you where you are now?
I mean, a lot of it, so, I was 16 years old, and I was a junior in high school. So they put me on in this ward where they were monitoring me all the time. They had to take out, if I had a hoodie, they took out all the strings and everything just to make sure you didn't hurt yourself more. And then they kind of just fiddled with the meds until it was right. And then they also did a lot of therapies. So I talked to counselors and therapists and psychiatrists, and a lot of like art therapy and that kind of stuff. And then when I got out, I struggled for a while still afterwards. And I mean, looking back, I probably struggled really badly until the beginning of my 20s with this. And I still struggle with depression. And I don't think there wasn't like a aha moment. I just kind of like pushed through it. And then when I found jujitsu, I'm 28 now. I found it when I was 22. 22. And it wasn't something that just magically changed, but over time, jujitsu gave me tools. I've overcome a lot of trauma in my past, from past relationships and stuff too. And over time, during the early 20s and my teens, I built this mentality that I was kind of like a victim, and bad things happened to me. And basically life is unfair, and it is unfair, but jujitsu gave me the tools to start believing in myself, start seeing my self-worth. I'm a 115-pound girl, and I can go and sweep a 200-pound guy, which is really empowering. And it's great for self-defense too, but it kind of makes you start believing in yourself in a way that other things don't. And then when you couple that with the mental training, where I put myself in these situations where you're gonna lose more than you win most of the time. Most people lose more than they win, and I definitely do. And you have to be okay with disappointment. You have to be okay with the uncertainty and the unknown. And I think I've taken a lot of those tools that I've learned to deal with competing, and then brought that back into my life where, you know, I focus on the things I can control. I focus on the positives, a lot of positive self-talk. And that's really helped me with my depression and anxiety.
Definitely appreciate you sharing that, because it's the reason why I like to talk to different people, because everyone has different perspective and how jiu-jitsu has helped them. I hear about it, but not in depth. So I appreciate you sharing how jiu-jitsu has helped you be able to manage with depression, especially on the mindset. What would you, in your personal experience, what would be some of the things you would tell someone who would be struggling with depression or on the verge of, you know, suicidal thoughts or anything like that?
I would first tell them that it's okay to feel the way you feel. You know, I feel like we live in a world right now where we see snapshots of people's lives. So you're only seeing the positive. And I think that's honestly making it worse for people, because they're like, oh, this person has their life completely put together. Look at how happy they look, because we're not showing the vulnerable side. We're not showing all the hard parts that to get to that point. And it's okay to not be okay. Like, there isn't a magic fix. There's no band-aid you can put on it to make yourself feel better, even if you're taking meds. Like, it's not there's no fix for it. And it's okay to be struggling. It's okay to feel the way you feel, and no one should tell you otherwise. And then the second thing I would say is it's okay to get help. It's okay to have to lean on people. You know, that was really hard for me. It was being able to lean on people, but it's okay to need help, and it's okay to say, I need help, or to want someone to talk to listen to you, and to, instead of giving so much, to take sometimes.
We actually have a comment. I wasn't for sure if anyone's going to comment through because of how I was able to jerry rig all this. Eagan says, hi lady, I just started BJJ in February and I am inspired to keep training so I can share my story one day too. I watched one of your live interviews with Christina Barlan, watching from Melbourne, Australia. Cool. Wow. Melbourne,
That's awesome.
Australia. That's awesome. That's the reason why we're doing this, and appreciate Katie just coming up and stepping up and being able to share her story, because it's definitely much needed nowadays during the quarantine times, because there's going to be people that's going to be struggling. So bringing on people who's had that experience and is able to talk through it and talk about it is very valuable and impactful. So we appreciate you tuning in, Eagan. So as far as now, talk about it. You have I don't know if is it a blog that you have, Women Who Roll? Is that correct?
Yes, I have a vlog. I've honestly haven't been that great about posting in it recently. Life has kind of gotten in the way. I actually plan on starting to post now that I'm stuck at home with not much else to do. But yeah, it's I run Women Who Roll blog, just kind of trying to encourage anybody and everybody to train. I think it's something that can be beneficial to all women, especially in a self-defense aspect. There's a lot of, especially right now, I mean, domestic violence is up so much because of the quarantine, and it's really, really sad. And I just hope like people have the tools to deal with it. And I think jiu-jitsu can definitely be one of those tools.
Yes, I would agree. So tell us a little about your family life. You I think you have one kid, right? Or your daughter? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so you have a daughter, and you just recently got married?
Yeah, we just celebrated our 1-year anniversary in the quarantine, unfortunately. So we ordered some Thai food to go, and that was our celebration. But yeah, I have a husband. He recently got his black belt last year, so that's really exciting. We met through jiu-jitsu. And then I have a 7-year-old daughter who also trains. And then I have 2 dogs and 2 cats.
We love it. We love it. I remember when you came to our gym, I believe it was Professor Sophia McDermott's seminar, correct? And your white belt, and um, you have the most beautiful daughter. I was like, oh my gosh, she's so adorable. But that's how we met. But we just
Long time ago.
yeah, for sure. Um, but yeah, congrats to your husband. What's your husband's name?
Hi.
Ty. Okay. Congrats to you guys also. Um, so how's that been as far as training? Since you have a training partner at home, and then you have a daughter to train with now, sounds like a family affair. Sounds like in jiu-jitsu.
It is. Outside of quarantine, we spend 6 days a week at the gym.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty much. I take Fridays off because I need one day off, but I'm there 6 days a week. My husband does work a real full-time job, so he's not there quite as much. And he's essential, so he's still working. So at home life, we haven't trained as much as I wish we could. We have mats and everything, but I've kind of had to say to myself, like, it's okay to not to slow down a little bit. But all of us really love jujitsu. We've been taking virtual Zoom classes. We'll be doing our streaming our own tonight, and all 3 of us participate in those, which is really cool.
Cool.
And sometimes the cat dogs want to get involved too.
Yeah, my dog. I was doing a Facebook Live video or Zoom video, and my dog, she wanted to be on everything. I don't know if you saw the video when I pull out the mat, she just like becomes this like savage wiener, just a weenie dog. She's so aggressive on the mat. I'm like, man, who is this dog? So I pull out the mat. She wants to play, and I say, no, hold on, let me do my thing first. And then I was like, when I tell her to come over, she's like all trying to, yank on my hand and bite me and bark. And I was like, oh my gosh, who is this dog? So hilarious. Morning, Kareen. Thanks for being in here. If you have any questions that's tuning in, just let me know. I'll keep glancing here and there on my phone. And anyone who's tuning in, apologize because sometimes Zoom does not let me push it through Facebook Live, and so I'm just I figure I'll just at least record our session and then still do a Facebook Live through my phone. That way we can have a little bit of interaction. But then I'll push this once we're done with this recording. Then I'll push it later on through to Facebook. So tell us, what are some of your go-to moves, submissions? What do you like to go to?
I mean, it kind of will probably depend on when you ask. I've kind of played with lasso guard since I was a blue belt, and so I really like lasso guard when I'm playing guard. And then I really like Leglocks right now. I've been doing a lot. I've been doing a lot of like pro fights and stuff, and that allow reaping and heel hooks and all that. The most recent tournament that I did, they had a elite division and allowed me to heel hook someone, so that was really awesome. Like I love it. I was like, yes, I'm doing this tournament. It allows heel hooks. It allows reaping.
Yes.
So, I really like Leglocks. But I really like arm bars. It's really basic, and thinking back, like when I was a white belt, I was like, arm bars don't work. They don't work. And now I love them.
Yeah, you'll start to find them a lot more as you go later on down the road, for sure. Yeah, I'm pretty much similar the same way, because the legs it's like when Professor Danaher say, why would you ignore 50% of the human body? And you're like, okay, you got to attack the legs, and if they're like trying to protect their legs, and you got their other limbs, like they're trying to reach out, push away with their arms,
exactly,
or their head. That's another thing I'm learning is once there's a point where I was focusing on, okay, I'm getting the basic down, let me learn leg locks. And I was just like 2 years of just learning leg locks, but I was just like, it was like a trial and error because I was like, you know, getting smashed and stuff like that. But I learned how to frame and stuff and get out of those bad positions. So, go ahead.
I found that now that I know leg locks, people are less likely to try to smash me with their legs because they're like, oh no, you're going to take my leg if I do that. And so it's really changed how people try to pass my guard because they're worried about where they put their legs. And I'm like, this is awesome. Why haven't I done this before?
Yep, exactly. And then when they're like thinking about their legs, then they're like, oh crap, there's my arm or my head for the headlock. So yeah, it's just, it helps your game evolve for sure. So how do you prepare for competition? I know people are going to ask about that.
It depends on the competition. I do some smaller local ones that I kind of do in the middle of a fight camp. I'll do kind of just to test where I'm at. But for the bigger ones like, ADCC trials for worlds, pans, all those, I kind of start about 6 weeks out. I'll start being more serious about my diet because I try to eat healthy, but you need to have off days too. So about 6 weeks I'll start being more serious about my diet and I'll start ramping up my training. I do train 6 days a week, but outside of fight camps, I'm not trying to, I'm not going hard all the time. I give myself more time to have fun. I'm not working on my A game. So about 6 weeks out, I start working on what I want to do in the tournament. If everything goes the way I plan it, which it never does, but and then I'm training. I kind of do like cycles where I'm not. I'm doing 2 a days most days, so I can't go competition training all the time. My body just can't handle that. And so I'll cycle hard training in, and my hardest day will be the day that I should be competing on. So for pans that did end up getting canceled, I was supposed to probably go on Friday. So my hardest day were Thursdays and Fridays where I was training. I had 2 sessions on Thursdays. Both morning and nights were really hard. I do a lot of situational stuff where I'll let someone start in like mount or side control, back control, and all I have to do is escape and survive. And then it goes right back to that. So that way when I'm out there and if someone gets me in a bad position, hopefully they don't, but it happens, I can remain calm and get out of it. And then I'm not playing as much. I'm focusing on what I want to do. So for IBJJF, I have to start ignoring leg locks because, but you have to, what you're going to play with. When I'm getting ready for a fight to win, I'm doing, I'm taking the gi off in gi classes when rolling comes, and I'm doing no gi, and I'm working my heel hooks and stuff like that.
Now, have you found? I know for me, when I first started my journey, it was mostly gi because the transition wasn't there as far as leg locks and no gi yet. But I found that training no gi has actually helped with my gi game. So
it definitely. I've kind of like a lot of my pro fights are no gi fights, and so I've been training a lot more no gi recently than I have in the past. Most gyms do, maybe 1 or 2 classes a week of no-gi. And I used to not really like no-gi. Like I like grips. I play lasso guard. Like how do you play lasso guard without a gi? You don't. And so not having the gi, it's a faster pace. You can't rely on those grips. So you have to really, I feel like you have to be more on, if that makes sense. Your technique has to be more there than in the gi, where you have things that you're like, well, if my foot placement isn't right, but I have this gi grip, like it won't matter. Versus in no gi, you don't have that. And so it's definitely I think it's definitely improved my game.
Yeah, as far as you can't really rely on grips in no gi, and then in gi, I don't know if you watch. I was watching the Mendes brothers because they know how to utilize when to use a gi and when to let go and have no gi grips. And so their transition is just fluid. And so that's what the marrying of the two between a no gi and gi is for me is learning when to grip, learning when to let go, and learning how to transition with those timings of jiu-jitsu. So that's my take of the marrying of the two on that. We have, yes, Kareen says lasso for the win, just not a Noogie, Kareen. And then we have Eagan. I don't know how to say your first name, but is it Kang? She says, good morning. It's 2 a.m. here, but I don't want to miss the live chat. One day I hope I can go there, and I'm training with Gracie Baja. Awesome. Look at, we got a live band here. That's awesome. 2 a.m. in the morning in Australia, for sure. So as far as how are you managing your daughter? I assume she's been homeschooling before. Is this a transition? Was she going through school before this, or?
Yeah, she was in public school, and we actually moved just before this happened. So she actually changed schools, and had to be homeschooled anyways. But they, I don't know how it is elsewhere, but the school district she's in provided Chromebooks for the kids. And so they've, which has been awesome. And so she does a lot of online instruction. They have Zoom meetings. Her teacher's been recording welcome, good morning videos. And then she's in 2nd grade, and then videos of her reading for reading time and different stuff like that. So she has been homeschooled, but she's a very independent 7-year-old. I think she started wanting to make her own food at like 5. Like she's like, oh no, I'm gonna make myself a quesadilla because I can do that. And so she's being homeschooled, but I'm really, really blessed with her. Except for when she needs help understanding something, she has a list of assignments and she just goes through them. And she loves school, so it's on that part of the aspect of the transition, it's been relatively easy.
Yeah, that's nice. That's definitely a good thing as far as being able to transition and spending some quality time with your daughter, for sure. What's her name?
Michaela.
Okay, so Ty and Michaela on there. Nice. Going back to jiu-jitsu, I know there's definitely some fans on here with jiu-jitsu. What are some of your most memorable fights, tournament fights that you went through that pops in your head? Or memorable or toughest?
So I think my most memorable one would be my first fight to win. I was a brand new purple belt. I had my purple belt for maybe a month or two, and I was going against a brown belt. And so mentally, like, that was really tough. And then I went out and I actually ended up winning. And it was, for those who follow me, like, there's a picture of me like jumping up and like really excited. Like I put so much of my heart and soul into jiu-jitsu, and there's so many moments that it doesn't quite click. Like, winning is about, it's not just about knowing everything. You also, sometimes it's just about how you're feeling on that day. And some days you have off days. And that was a 100% on day. Like, I was mentally there. I didn't have really bad nerves that day. Like, I went out there being like, okay, like, I've got this. I like had all the self-belief that I'd never had before. And so it was a huge win for me, both just for winning the fight and for mentally. And then I think the other one, I already talked about the Las Vegas Open. I think, trying to think what other memorable moments there have been. I think I, as a blue belt, as a relatively brand new blue belt, I went for the On It Invitational, and I ended up losing. I ended up losing pretty badly. I got heel hooked in like a minute. I didn't know what I was doing with Leglocks, and it was tough. Like, I was devastated. It was super humbling. I went against this 10th Planet Headquarters girl, and she knew what she was doing, and she took my leg off. Luckily, like, no injuries or anything, but that was a huge moment for me because I realized how much more I needed to learn and how much more effort I needed to put in. And that's kind of what spurred my leg lock game. I came back to the gym. I just moved to Seattle, and I went in and I was like, okay, like leg locks need to be a strength and not a weakness.
Yeah, for sure. Now, is your gym, do they do a bunch of leg locks when you're there? Because I know gyms kind of are, they're still learning, because it's a new thing. Nowadays it's probably like, I guess it's caught on. So I don't know how your gyms take as far as teaching leg locks.
We are probably more progressive than most. We allow, so at white belt, obviously you're allowed straight ankle locks, but then our gym also allows white belts to wrist lock. And then at blue belt, you get knee bars. At purple belt, you get toe holds. At brown belt, you get all the slicers and that stuff. And then at black belt or with black belt supervision, you get heel hooks. I've kind of been an exception to those rules just because of the pro fights I've been in. You can't go into a fight and be like, oh, sorry, my gym doesn't allow me to do toe holds, so can't do them, sorry. So they also are kind of cognizant of the people that need to be higher than that, but those are kind of our base rules, which I think is pretty progressive, because I know some places don't allow like leg locks until you're a purple brown belt, and I think that's kind of a shame, because you don't want to get to that point and then be like, oh, now that I can do like knee bars, now I need to learn how to do knee bars. If you're waiting until you're that belt level, you're behind. Yep. And you're gonna get caught. And I don't know. I don't really believe in ignoring 50% of the body. You know?
Well, that's another thing is the reason why we both went to ADCC, because you're able to reap and leg lock, and it doesn't matter what belt. You can compete at any level at belt, and so that's why we're comfortable in just competing in ADCC, because we knew what we're going to get ourselves into on that. So tell us, one of the things that was pretty cool, it was cool to see you at ADCC, because I was like, man, I don't have anyone to kind of warm up with and practice with. So it's like a saving grace for me out there.
Well, and we showed up at like, what, 7:45 to weigh in, and then we didn't compete until, what, 5 p.m.? I was so glad to have someone to hang out with. That was miserable.
I was like, what? Why do we have to wait so long? Come on, let's go. A lot of people were just like eager just to fight that day. But tell us a little bit about your match.
At DCC Trials?
Yeah.
So that I ended up losing my first round, unfortunately. I went out there. I went out there, and I'm a guard puller. For like anyone that's watched me in the gi, like I pull a guard, or at least I did. And so going into ADCC Trials, I was like, all right, takedowns, wrestling, all this stuff, and it's improved tremendously. And during that time, like, she, I don't remember who I went against, honestly, but she took me down, but then I reversed it, and that was like a huge win for me. And and then also I got to honey hole, so I got to my position, and so there's these little wins. I took ADCC Trials, like I was a relatively new purple belt, and I thought I was gonna do great, but the likelihood of me getting into ADCC at that level was really low. Like, and so I was like, all right, this is a test run. So for when I'm a brown belt or a black belt and I'm doing it again, it's not the first time. So it was a great learning experience for me. It was like, all right, this is how it is. Here are the rules. They keep having you go even if you're on the cement, which, like, when I came home, my arm, like I had a cement burn on my arm because we were still rolling on cement. Like, so crazy. Like, they don't, it's not IBJJF where you're like, oh, your foot's out of bounds, power out,
I think it's like one of the best experiences. If anyone ever gets the chance to go to ADCC, no matter what, go do it.
It was awesome.
It was like the best experience ever.
I remember seeing two guys like roll into the TV and completely just crack the TV because they're just like, we're not going to stop the action unless we really have to.
But also seeing those superstars too, like those, you know, the death squads out there performing, like, whoa, you know, and then the high names, those black belts that you see out there, like, okay, I need to focus on my own match. You know?
Yeah. It's really cool in jiu-jitsu. It's like the only sport that if you stick with it, you're going to end up going against people you idolized. The people, like, you know, you see people come up, and then now that I've gotten a little higher rank, I'm like, okay, these people are going to become my competition. Like, I absolutely love Eagan, and I know when I become black belt, she's going to be the person to beat in my division.
Yep. Gotcha. I ended up going against Nikki Sullivan. Actually, she's supposed to come on Tuesday. So, but yeah, it was cool. She was fun to roll with, actually. I lasted up until like 5 minutes, and then she arm locked me. But she did not leg lock me. She was trying to, but she leg locked the next two. She knee barred the next two people. So I was like, oh.
Well, your leg lock game was on point then.
I survived the leg lock game. So, Kareen asked, do you get nervous before your matches?
I used to get really, really nervous, and that's honestly why I started competing. I compete about once a month. Obviously, right now it's quarantine, so no one's competing, but I started competing more to help my nerves. The first time I competed, I didn't eat the night before or the day of because I couldn't eat because my nerves were so bad. So I started putting myself in those positions to work through my nerves. I also, I've done a lot of mental training. I've read a lot of books. And I practice like at home doing the things to make myself not be nervous. One of the main things is that, like, physiologically, nervousness and excitement are the exact same thing. It's just the negative connotation you're putting on it. So I never give my nerves power. Like, I'm always like, I'm excited. I'm not nervous. I'm excited. And so then it's something positive that I can propel into my jiu-jitsu rather than something that takes away from it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I've never heard anyone put it that way. That's definitely a good way to harness nervousness for sure. Excellent. Good point. Great question, Kareen. So we're going to kind of slowly conclude. What would you say, what would be like a positive, and I think you quoted it, I don't know if you recall the quote you just mentioned, and I'll make sure to post it inside my Zoom interview we just did. So what is a message, a positive message, a quote, or a mantra you'd like to leave to the world?
I'm going to use the one that I sent you. It's kind of what I've always told myself. The world needs dreamers and the world needs doers, but above all, the world needs dreamers who do. And I kind of use that as motivation that you can dream big and then you need to go out and do it.
Perfect. That's definitely a great message. Any like one particular pivotal moment, story behind that message that made you think about that message?
It took me a long time to believe in myself. And so I've always been a huge dreamer. You know, they always say shoot for the stars. And then I started realizing that you miss out on life if you just dream and you don't do anything to accomplish those. And so there was a moment that I was like, you know, if I fail, I'm going to at least fail trying rather than just dreaming about these things that are never going to happen. And now it's like, okay, you know, if I fail, you know, I lost at DCC Trials, but I went out and I tried, you know, and there weren't that many girls there. We were like one of, I don't want to say a number because I don't know how many, but there weren't that many that actually put in the effort to try to be part of the American ADCC Trials. And I'd rather do that than ever think about the what ifs and the what could have been or what could I have been. And that's really been what that message means to me.
That's an awesome message. I definitely agree with that philosophy. Kareen asks, she has 2 questions before we close out. Favorite mental book?
The Art of Mental Training. That's probably my go-to. It's a great audiobook if you prefer not paper. I have it in both. I will listen to that on plane rides into the big tournaments. I'll listen to that going to Long Beach, Irvine, all those, Las Vegas. And it's a really short, quick read, and it'll give you some great tools that you can utilize right away. And then there's a lot of others. If anyone wants any more, they can always message me. Actually, I'm going to write a blog post about this. This is motivation about mental training.
Love it. Well, tag me as soon as you get that done so I can share it for sure. Share your page and your blog. Also, one more question. How do you balance family life and competing? Kareen's got some great questions.
That's honestly been really hard. When I started jiu-jitsu, I was a single mom. So my daughter came with me to all the tournaments. I was really lucky that a lot of the tournament directors were really nice, and they would let me bring her mat side. There's pictures of her when she was like 3 years old, like mat side, and I'm there competing. It's been really great. But now that she's older, it's been a little easier. I have a really, really supportive husband who will do everything he can so that I can chase my dreams. So, when I leave, he really picks up the slack. And when I'm gone, like I'm FaceTiming constantly. Like I miss her so much. And then I don't, some people go in for Worlds and they stay for a week. I go in for like 2 days. I know which day I'm going to compete. I go in and I go out because I have those family obligations that a lot of people don't have. And it's a struggle, and I think it'll continue being a struggle, but you have to make the sacrifices to chase your dreams, but you also don't want to put your family life on the back burner. And so it's just been kind of balancing act. I've had to turn down some stuff because my family has to come first. And I think that's okay.
Beautiful. All right. So we're going to close out on that, unless anyone else has any questions. And I don't have any music, so we're going to kind of do a little bit of a savage sign dab out. So it's what it looks like is it's almost like this motion, like a choke, okay? And then we're just going to clap, and then we're just going to dab.
Okay. I'm such a bad dancer.
That's why I'm breaking it down like this, like a choke. Clap, and then
okay.
You got it?
We'll see how this goes.
We'll go slow. So ready? We got this one. This is the first one. Clap, and then dab. There you go.
And this is why I don't have a TikTok.
It's all good. I'm learning as I go. I was like, I don't know how to dance. What am I doing? So I had to slow it down. So it's all good. I'm learning stuff. I'm learning sign language too. So, all right. You have a blessed day. Thank you so much, Katie.
You too. Great talking to you.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you, everyone.